two rating systems describe their own research and what went into it, this slide is almost representative of the two systems as a whole. When you look at what Fitwel has for their description of their research, they basically say in a single sentence, we looked at 3,000 peer-reviewed research papers on health and wellness and the built environment's impact, and that's how we formed our rating system. And then Well has this different itemization of criteria that they used for creating it, and they go on to say in this underlined statement, where important issues have not been adequately addressed by the literature, the Well building standard relies on expert consultation as the basis for defining performance requirements, which is another way of saying that they are still figuring it out and the metrics are going to change. There are certain things where there hasn't been enough time or research to understand the potential human health impact. So the rating system is going to evolve. And I did go through the Well appendix and I looked to see there is approximately 275 different citations for reference studies, and I'm sure each of those reference studies has a ton of different reference studies with citations within them, so it's a branch that might reach out to 3,000 papers, but that's kind of the approach of what's gone into it. And also, those reference studies are not comprehensive of all the different standards like ASHRAE, which Well uses, which have been evolved over decades to set industry standards for what is appropriate in certain metrics. And then looking at the point scope comparison, for Well, every feature is weighted the same. And we talked about that a little bit already, and I know how that comes to play out in practice. So definitely a little bit different approach there with Well. But because Fitwel does a point award system based off of the strength of evidence and potential health impact, the highest point credit or concept within Fitwel is having a lactation room, because it's not just impacting one person, it's impacting two people. Just kind of an interesting and novel idea. I feel like you have something you want to say about that.
Well, I would get in the storytelling mode, but we got about 15 minutes, so let's get people got to get to the next one.
Well, I was told actually that the, coffee breaks at 10:30? So we have plenty of time.
Well, all right. Since they've all agreed to be here with us till then.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, coming down from the lactation room, there's basically a similar set of awarded criteria for where you put your building, which relates to your walk score, food choices. Not using asbestos is a big reward, although hopefully we're not still in that stage for the advanced design practices. Having an IAQ plan and having stairs will get you a pretty big chunk of points in Fitwel.
So notice we're not referencing ASHRAE when we do that. Well, we're on different ends of the stage now, aren't we?
Yeah.
So we're not referencing ASHRAE. They say something as vague as saying, have an IAQ plan. They don't tell you which one to have. And so this is something that we see over and over again when we start to compare these two back and forth, is that one is very specific and the criteria of how you achieve it and the standards within which it references. The other one, not so much. Yes?
But you can't argue, and you're trying to create a false equivalency between the two, but you really cannot argue that the evidence base behind Fitwel that informs Fitwel, and also that informs the health impact, which is what we're going after, is the impact on the population health. Then Fitwel has a much stronger evidence base today than what fellow Well standard has, and that's not coming from me. That's coming from the chapter in the ethos.
Well, if you look at the number of studies referenced, that's certainly true. But
no, not just by number, but the actual health impact.
Yeah, but
I disagree with that. Just because when you start to look
you
at the
can disagree with that, but the scientists say different.
Well, okay. I mean, NASA can get up and they have 30 years worth of satellite imagery that says the polar ice caps are melting. Oh my God! And Ted Cruz can get up and say, without any satellite imagery, that it's not, and he's suddenly a competitor in the space of like having a conversation about that. And one of the things that I'm not doing that because actually I've studied this, and when we look at this, we're going to see at the end of this, without stealing too much of our own fire, that they do look at and ask for a lot of the same things, but one is a lot more robust than the other in terms of the things that we look at. So in terms of comfort, there's no criteria for thermal comfort, olfactory comfort, any kind of comfort.
acoustical
Acoustical comfort in Fitwel. And there's a ton of it. There's a whole section dedicated to it in well.
Yeah,
And
but
let's just think about that. I mean, in the workplace, that's what it is.
established yet. The evidence base is not established. They're starting to make some small connections, but you're represented as an established evidence base, and the evidence base isn't established.
So you're
Well,
saying
the
well
evidence
does
is-
not have the evidence-based design?
I'm saying well doesn't, not in all of the criteria. They list the criteria, but the evidence base isn't strong and established in all of that criteria.
Well,
Maybe,
let's also remember too that well is health is not just about it makes me sick or not. It's also an issue of productivity in the workplace. So I think that's again why
That's an
acoustic
outcome.
comfort and all these other things are important considerations, because it's not just health, it's other
Yeah, and
issues.
acoustics is a really good one because even though there isn't the evidence yet for this body of research to substantiate well, we do know from industry surveys and the Center for the Built Environment that even in green buildings in particular, acoustics are actually more of a problem there than in conventional buildings, and it's the #1 workplace complaint for impacting productivity. So we do have a sense of what the problems are, but maybe not yet the full body of research to prove the benefits.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. We have some